B'ezrat Hashem, we are in the midst of the war, and I heard on the radio this morning that they started going into Gaza. Who knows what it's going to be? Russia came out against Israel. They said, why are you killing innocent Palestinian children? Because of a few people who did something wrong. Russia and China are aligning with Iran, are aligning with the Arabs. Europe and America are aligning with Israel. Everything is really heating up over here. And Chazal tell us many, many things which we see happening in front of our eyes. Now, when you see things happening in front of your eyes, it doesn't mean that for sure Mashiach has come. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen. But it's mechayev us to do what we can in order to expedite it, to make it happen, to make sure that this is really going to be the end of the gullus. Chaim Volozhin says in the Sefer, in Nefesh HaChaim, that when you daven, and we make bakashas, you're not supposed to be davening because you're upset. That's not the point, or you need something, right? We're davening because when we are lacking something, when we're in pain, when we are suffering, so the Shekhinah is suffering. So all our tefillos, right, all our avoda is because we're suffering for the Sar Shekhinah. The Chofetz Chaim actually said that the days of Mashiach are called Yomim She'ein Be'em Chayfetz because we don't want it. We don't really want Mashiach. Once Mashiach comes, we won't have avoda anymore. We'll lose our free will. So we're davening for Mashiach because of the Chisar quote Shemaim. Because as long as the world is the way it is, and Hashem is very hidden, and people could disgrace His name. So there's a lack of Hashem's honor. Okay, we spoke in the last shmuz about the idea of Ma Yas Adam V'Yatzel Michevli Mashiach. The Gemara in Tzadik Hesam Beis in Sanhedrin. Yastik B'Torah Gmil Chesed. I'll take it one step further, and this is really, really important idea. And we have two Yedidim who came all the way from Choresh today to hear this concept. L'maisa, we said that the ultimate Maisa Chesed, the ultimate act of Chesed a person can do, comes from learning Torah. This asik b'Torah g'nos chesed. When a person learns Torah in depth, then that is going to influence his Chesed. That's why we see such incredible acts of Chesed, from the Gedolim. I want to take that one step further today, and bring it down for us in our lives, right? And I'll be makdam with something that Chazon Ish said. The Chazon Ish writes in Igeris, Chazal tell us, Ein divrei Torah miskayim elamishim meimis esas moleim. A person can only internalize and live Torah if he's meimis himself in them. I remember when I was a Bachar at Jerusalem in Yeshiva Avi Epstein, we used to, we were learning, we'd say, are you willing to die for this, right? Because if not, then it's not going to really miskayim, right? But the Chazon Ish says, don't take those words literally. Meimis doesn't mean physically death. It means destroy your superficial outlook on life, right? What Torah does is it takes an outlook on life, which is superficial, was based on the way things look and they appear, and it changes it completely. Right? And that's called Meimis es Atzmo. That's called Meimis es Atzmo. And I think we can add this to our thing. That's why ultimately a person can really only reach the perfection of Ma'aseh Chesed through learning Torah. Because if a person hasn't learned Torah, he hasn't understood the world properly enough in order to really, really do acts of Chesed that have the ability to protect us from Chevli Mashiach, which we know is going to be very, very great. So apply this specifically to marriage. Chazal tell us, the Gemara says that Noshim Am B'fnei Atzmam, the women are a nation for themselves. And the Tosas Rid, I always quote this Tosas Rid, it's Shabbos, Sanach Beis, Sanach Dalet, whatever the Gemara is. It says that men and women don't have one thing in common, nothing. Not, they have eyes, they have nose, nothing in common, right? And that makes marriage very, very challenging. If a person goes into marriage without understanding how the Torah directs us in every single aspect of our life, then they are bound to fail. They're bound to fail. right? And this is what Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said by his wife Slavaya. He said, I didn't need to ask her Mechila, because every single thing we did was al pi Torah. And there's no reason to get upset or arguments or fights or anything, right? Because the person who lives his life according to what Torah tells him, then there's never a reason to have any problems at all, ever, in marriage. And the most typical marriages, there were Gedolim who were married to women, and great women who were married to men who were psychologically deranged. Life, because they understood everything in the Torah has a klal. Everything in Torah has a standard of behavior, the way that you're meant to live your life. And if you follow that klal, you'll be happy, even when things look really, really bleak, right? So, Chazal tell us Noshim Am B'fnei Atzmam. Chazal also tell us something, which is that a person should marry someone from their hometown. Why is that? Right? People tell me, like, even between Yerushalayim and Bnei Brak, people are really, really different. And if you marry someone from another city, right, and certainly from another country, and certainly from like a very radically different culture, right, the nisyonos will be P-elef, perhaps, depending on the difference between the cultures, and it becomes much, much more challenging. But that's what we have to remember, right? Number one, Chazal tell us, right? When Sota says, before a person is born, Bas Ploni LaPloni, yeah, your wife or your husband, if you're a woman, yeah, that your spouse is designated in Shamayim exactly what should be, right? Bas Ploni LaPloni, and Hashem takes into account every little thing, every aspect of your personality, everything you have to work on, every point. How to bring you to the ultimate perfection, and that's decided from before you're born even. The spouse that you're given, I think, now, of course, look, we have other klal, someone's spouse is mentally deranged, and they can't live with it. Rabbi Yaakov will tell me, have to see. There's many klal. I'm not going to speak about them here. That's, for that a person needs a rough, right? But at least let's take this klal, the klal of having a spouse who thinks, we already know the fact that a man or woman, that's like a different universe, right? But then the more differences that are existing, right? And certainly if they come from two radically, radically different cultures, yeah, then the Nisoyan is very, very great. But that we have to remember, yeah, is that Hashem put you into that Nisoyan. Hashem put you into that Nisoyan because that is the ultimate way that you will reach your shleimus in this world, right? And as I always quote from the davening in Psukei Zimra, right? It's my favorite line in Psukei Zimra, right? In the Halukas, right? We say in the Kuklam Zion every morning, Hashem's wisdom is infinite. If Hashem puts you with this woman or man, it's infinitely chachma that was used for that. And it's to reach your ultimate shleimus, right? And a person can only survive that nesoya if he understands the omik of Torah, right? What the Chazon Ish is saying. You cannot look at life superficially. If you look at what's going, and I can tell you many, many stories that have come to me, right? And I spoke to a number of cases with Zalman Auerbach, with Shlomo Brevda, many, many Gedolim, with Shlomo Safrani, right? All my Rebbeim were Shlomo, they all had Chacham Shlomo. And I was so shocked, the way that I was looking at it from my, stupid perspective, right? When they showed me how the Torah looks at it and how it was slight errors in perception changed radically, my whole world outlook changed, everything. Yeah. And one sort of beautiful idea about Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef HaTzadik was the Rosh HaMashpia. He was basically running the entire world. He was feeding the entire world. He was Mishnah Melech in Egypt. Was thinking, how can you have the ability to do that? Yeah, you see Yosef, he goes into prison, and he's dealing with even the prisoners, the Sarah Mashkin, right? So I don't remember from where I saw this, but they said that he went through so many challenges in life, and each challenge he used to grow. Each Nisoyan that Hashem gives us, right? My close friend, Dr. It's OFG, an opportunity for growth. Each challenge to use to grow, and that made him to a person where he could be Michelin Melech. He could run the entire world, right? Like Rav Volba quotes the Medrash, Eli Shor. Women in Mitzrayim used to stand on the wall to look at him because he reached such a shleimus, he reached such a perfection, right? And that perfection came out in the Sionos, right? His brother tried to kill him, and he was in the house of Ashes Potiphar, and then he was in jail, right? And then he was living in the licentiousness of Mitzrayim. All of those Nisyonos, that built Yosef Atzadik, and that made him the person who he was. And that's what we have to go through in life, right? Now, the ultimate chesed that a person can do, right? Kabbalti from Rebbeim, and there's many proofs to that from Chazal, right? The ultimate chesed a person can do is to make others happy, yeah? Is to be mesameach other people. The Gemara in Tainus, right? The Gemara says about Eliyahu Navi that he was in the shuk, and someone met him and said, "Tell me, who's the Bnei Olam Haba here?" And there were a lot of Choshev people that day in the shuk, and he pointed to two Badchanim. Yeah, pointed to Badchanim. He said, "These two people, right? Why? Because they're misameach other people. They give people, they take people who are down and they bring them up. The greatest chesed a person can do," the Maharsha there explains, is because when a Jew is in Sar, the Shekhinah is in Sar. When a Jew is in Sar, the Shekhinah is in Sar, and by making other people happy, so you're taking off the Sar Shekhinah. You're being mesameach the Shekhinah. This is the greatest chesed a person can do, right? And especially when it has to do with your spouse. Now, we know every time a person is in interaction with a spouse who they think is like doing something which makes no sense to them, and they might let them know about that, right? Like, this is the craziest thing I've heard in my life. It might really be that way, right? But if you express that to them and you make them feel terrible because you're calling them crazy and other things, and they're completely wrong, and this, you're destroying them. You're destroying their life. You're giving them a bad feeling, and you're taking away everything that they have, which is their feeling about feeling good about themselves, right? So this is the ultimate challenge in marriage, is to be able to accept, as long as it's not talking about Torah Mitzvah, but accept the differences of your spouse, to understand that you were given such a partner in order to bring yourself to perfection, yeah, and to be happy about it, and to accept the challenge, and to work with it, right? And I can tell you from seeing many, many cases and speak to many Gedolim and my own personal experiences, the more that you work on this, and the more you accept, I'm just learning now the Amud Yomi in Brachos. So the Gemara there on Daf Ches, it says matzah. You used to ask the Chassan, matzah, right? So the Gemara there explains. He said matzah is present tense. Matzah isha matzah tov. I found my wife, matzah tov. But motzah anisha mari mavis. Motzah means like I'm still looking, future tense. If you feel that you haven't met, in other words, I'm sorry, past tense, you found your wife, you'll live in Olam Haba. But future tense, I'm still looking, maybe yes, maybe no. Sometimes people make mistakes, even Hashem, Ploni, but maybe like they got the petik mixed up when it's the wrong person. Right? If you feel that way, then mar mi mavis, you'll be living again, Because if a woman feels that her spouse doesn't accept her, whatever the reason might be, that's, you're going to experience yourself Mami Mavis. And this is something which, we have to internalize, because again, the differences that exist, whether it be between men and women, cultural differences, world outlook, whatever it may be, right? It makes it extremely difficult and challenging to flourish and to thrive in such a relationship. But this is what Hashem wants. If Hashem, we always say from the Chavetz Chaim says, by Moshe Rabbeinu that it's now, that place where you are, that's holy ground. Said the Chavetz Chaim, wherever Hashem put you, that's holy ground. Hashem put you there. He wants you exactly in that place. You're like, how can I possibly wind up with such a spouse? I get this phone call from so many Chassanim like a week or two after their wedding, or a month, or a year. Like, how did this happen? What kind of deranged person put me, together with this spouse? And the answer is how did it happen? It's because of you. That person was perfectly, now again, or das Torah to be consulted if it's not something that a person can live with. But generally speaking, Hashem put you exactly with that person. You're supposed to continue with that person. There's many, many differences. You might not understand it. You might understand what's going on, but your job is matzah. I found the right one, right? And this is what Rav Safrani told me, right? He said a marriage flourishes if each one works on their own issues. Then the marriage flourishes incredibly. If each one is trying to solve their spouse's issue, then they'll probably never get anywhere, and it'll be miserable marriage. So again, we're in very auspicious times, and I'll tell you, I was baffled this morning by Shachris, because on Thursday of Bahab, they said Ulai Yirakim, I'm an Evivyon, Ulai Yirakim. I thought people would like be crying on the floor, sobbing in tears. Like what's going on? 200 hostages and people. The hotels are full of people from the north or from the south. People have nowhere to live. People call me up every day. They're being shelled. Do they move? Do they don't move? Right? They're going to go into Gaza. Who knows what's going to be? Right? And it's impossible. We're living with an enemy. It's impossible to defeat. One just goes look. Right? The entire generation. You understand? Who's Hamas? Hamas, the entire country. The entire country's been educated to kill Jews. In their math books, I'm not joking. It says if you have 10 Jews and you kill 3 of them, how many left to kill? Right? That's what they write in the books. It's a joke. The whole generation's been educated like this. It's a Sarah and Sma. I was alive, I was crying, tears coming down me. But like people just got back into the shikra. People feel the war is over. There was a woman speaking on the radio this morning from the government. They can't let the war. People have to go to war. People are ready to go back and say no. The first right after sin was started, there was big Atzeres Tefillah. But it's dying out, and that's very, very dangerous. I just want to read to you what from Israel Orbach. Right? He was asked, to what extent are we obligated to empathize and daven for the Jews' captivity in Gaza? He said, right, it fills my heart with the greatest pain and anguish to think about these terrible tragedies. You should try and feel as if your own children have been kidnapped, right? Son, but this is, we have to now feel for other Jews. Feel like it's your own children. Everything you would do for your child, not everything, of course, but, at least in our hearts, the only thing we can really do is to daven for them. But how do you get that level of sensitivity? How do you do that, right? This is what Chazal are coming to Magal to us. Yeah, a person who wasn't married and a person who didn't have children wasn't allowed to be on the Sanhedrin, because being married and having children, especially, that builds our sensitivity. That's supposed to make us different people. It's supposed to open our hearts up. It's the same thing with the Nisyonos we get in marriage. All of these Nisyonos are supposed to make us more sensitive people, more caring, more concerned, more feeling. Yeah. And if we don't do that, then we're missing it. Like Rav David Feinstein said, if you learned the Gemara and you didn't come out a more sensitive person, you should learn the Gemara again. You didn't get the topic. You didn't understand what they were coming to teach us. And this is really, really so critical. Right? And again, the more different your wife is from you, the more Hashem is saying, I want really major changes in her life. Yeah? Right? Now, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. Right? It means you have potential for real growth. The Gra speaks in Mishlei about the Adam Anelam. The Adam Anelam. Right? Who's the Adam Anelam? The Gra says the Adam Anelam is that potential what exists within you, who you could bring out. And the way you get brought out is through the missions that you have, through the challenges that you have, right? So each and every one of us, during this time when there's such a war going on, and we need to do whatever we can for the sake of Klal Yisrael, right? The first place it really starts is at home with our spouses. I remember one of the Abrechim who was here in the Kollel came up to me before Rosh Hashanah, and he tried to figure out a Kabbalah, and his Kabbalah was that he's going to praise his wife once a day by dinner. We worked it out together. I think that's amazing. Whatever a person can do to make their spouse feel good, feel like they belong, And the Chazon Ish is another very, very important Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish says, "Hikar chukas isha limsochein b'nei bayil." You have to know, even if your wife, I got a letter last night from like the head of a certain department in Shai Tzedek. Have a bit of a tsar going on now. I'm trying to find a doctor. Might have to go to Chutz La'aretz, right? So, and like it was amazing that she wrote to me. I was such a person. I had to go through, find like her neighbor and write her a letter, and then get to send the letter and forward, and she wrote back to me. But even Doctor whatever her name is, yeah, she's like thousands of people working for her, and people try to get appointments with her. She can't just get appointments. She's too busy. Yeah. What is it really that gives her energy, keeps her going? Is to feel like her husband really cares about her and loves her and accepts her the way she is. Yeah. And etc. We all know the rest. So this really greatest chesed a person could do now. And we're saying two things here today. Number one, it comes through Torah. I taught some girls last night. I told them this, and they were telling me, but girls aren't supposed to learn Torah. Girls are, right? I said, no, that's a mistake. Any Torah that we learn has an influence on us. It elevates us. It elevates our neshama. It elevates our nefesh ruach and neshama. It's supposed to change the way we see the world. Right? That's the main thing. Torah gives us the hakvanah. It gives us the focus of the way we're really meant to see life. Right? And if you start seeing life like that way, your life is really, really different. This is why the Gedolim, right? This is why the Gedolim, you hear such incredible stories about their shalom bayis and how their relationships with people were, right? Moshe Feinstein, he gets a door slammed on his car, slammed on his finger for 2 blocks. He's bleeding. And he just quiet, because he doesn't want to insult his Talmud who accidentally slammed on his hands. Right? How does a person get to that incredible level of sensitivity, of caring? It's only through Torah. And the more that a person exposes themselves to Torah, and really the less a person exposes themselves to outside sources. Like one of the worst things going on right now is that people are just glued to the news 24/7, right? Every single thing that happens. Right? It's important to know what's going on. But that was it. Rabbi Kermeyer said on Tuesday, it's an incredible line from Rav Chaim Moser. He said, a newspaper is a graph shalei, and the content is the ray itself. The content is the ray itself, right? And the problem is, Rav Shimon Pincus said so many times, is because it's important to know what's going on. It is important. You see, there's a lot of this. You're allowed to read a letter on Shabbos if maybe it's coming. If there's a war going on, maybe you have to know what's happening. Where are they? Yeah, but just to be exposed to the way that they see the world, which completely lacks emunah, and it completely, it's ideologies which are completely antithetical to the Torah. That's such a dangerous thing for us. We have to be really, really careful. Right? So therefore, right, however much time you're spending listening to the news, right? And the truth is, nobody in Col needs to listen to the news. Either you go to the coffee room or the mikveh. Like that's where NBC News, CNN, they go to the mikveh to get all their information. But just try to subtract 5, 10, 20, however long it is, right? Make it almost like a 1 minute a day listen to the news, and all the time you're spend time learning Torah, because Torah will protect you. If you want to know how to be protected from Chevli Mashiach, just ask this because Torah will make us more elevated people, and from there we can really come to Chesed. And we're saying the ultimate Chesed is to your spouse, is to your children, is your relationships with other people. Right? That's going to make you a better Olam Haba, especially giving them hope, giving them simcha, giving them joy, giving them inspiration, whatever it might be. These are the things which are really going to protect us from Chevli Mashiach. And one girl last night in the school, she said, "Are we in Yerushalayim in danger?" She asked me. I said, "Look, the Navi in Zechariah Yudalit says half will survive and half will be in bad shape. I don't know exactly what's going to happen to them. Right? Make sure you're from the right hand. Yeah, make sure you're from the right hand. Everybody right now, if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they're definitely in the right hand. So our job right now as people living in Yerushalayim, really people all over the world should follow suit, especially in Yerushalayim. Think about what you should be doing. What are the things that you should be doing? How much do you daven? How much do you learn? How much do you spend time with your family and strengthen them? Do what you should be doing, and then you'll be from the right half. This is what of Shafani or Sternbach, others have told me that, right? Make sure, that's what Sternbach said, make sure you're in the correct half, right? Because the other half, it sounds oh, and I told these girls, I said, if you're coming here to learn and you want to grow and you're working on yourself, you'll be in that half, right? So, Bezrat Hashem, we should all be zoichet to be in that half, and we should be moving the Gula Hashem very quickly. Amen. So.